So usually money making methods on YouTube cater to everyone. After all, what's better than a no setup, no requirement money making method? But the reality is, the people who are making the most money are not doing no setup money making methods. There's a big setup involved, and there's requirements too. Now that makes sense, there should be rewards for the hours and hours of painful grind that you put into the game. Now the issue you've got with money making methods like AH flipping, or bazaar flipping, or even craft flipping using both. Everyone is at least doing or trying to do these methods. And to be honest, realistically, they're just not consistent. With AH flipping, you're completely reliant on someone else buying your item and someone else listing an item for too cheap. And then with bazaar flipping, most of the big orders and the big profits come from overnight orders and bulk orders. You put the order in, you wait overnight, and the prices have actually gone in the wrong direction, you lose coins. There's no guarantee you're going to make coins. Think about gemstone mining, one of the most consistent money making methods in the game, and also one of the best in terms of coins per hour. Now if you're wanting to use the best armor sets for best results, you're going to need half of the amount in tier 6, and that's not exactly no setup. Same goes for the drill, not exactly no setup. Now if you're like me, I find mining quite boring, really. I mean, it's got to be done at some point, but for now it's boring. But that's fine, because of course there's lots more lucrative industries within Skyblock. For instance, the service industry, where you provide a service for another player and they pay you for it. For instance, like God Splashes back in the day. And in terms of modern day, maybe people who just need carries in Slayers. Particularly Void Gloom and Inferno. Well, Juju Non's got to be able to use the Juju somehow, and with it being Enderman 5, it's not exactly the easiest for some players. We take that one step further and, well, how do you get a Terminator? Probably just progress at the game. But if you're like me, get carries. Yeah, it's probably just a skill issue on my part. But believe me when I say it, carries can make so many coins, it's unreal. Let me explain. But just before I do, are you subscribed to the channel? Well, you should be, and if you're not, you should change that. Become part of the 21%. And also while we're here, become a member, support your boy. Anyway, carries. Now often if you go to an end lobby, sometimes you see people either advertising carries, or basically looking for people to carry them, like in the chat. Now if you need carries, this is definitely not the best way of doing it. You should first of all click the link in the description of the video, which will take you to my Discord server. From there on the left hand side we have a section titled Carry. First of all we have an explanation of how to get carried, the prices of various carries which we'll come back to later. And if you need a carry, you just simply click on one of these buttons, it creates a ticket, and there you go, one of our carriers will be with you soon. It's definitely a much safer and easier way of getting carried, let's be honest. Oh, not to mention you can of course apply to be a carrier too, carry requirements. Hey look, back to the end, someone buying tier 3 Enderman carries. It's just easier to go through a Discord server. What if there's no carries in this lobby? Now of course, to be able to carry for instance a tier 4 Enderman, you have to have the setup yourself and the skills to back it up and the ability to actually do it. Although it is definitely achievable for pretty much all players. For instance, from my experience, what seems to be the most common carry that we do is Enderman tier 4 carries, which makes sense. People want Terminator, people want Juju. So in our server we charge 2.25 mil per completion, or if you buy 10 plus at a time, then you get it for a discounted rate of 2 mil per. Now, providing the actual carrier is able to carry quite efficiently, the factor that determines how much money you can make from this is the person who's actually getting carry, because they, in a sense, still have to spawn the bosses. So of course, this is in an ideal world, and this won't happen every time because you'll be carrying various sort of skill average of players. But let's say you have a carrier who is fairly good, they can probably kill a boss in under a minute, and then you have someone who can spawn a boss in under 2 minutes, okay? You're going to be able to get 20 done an hour, which is quite achievable, which in turn is 40 mil. Now, that might not be as good as what mining could potentially be, but at the same time, you could carry multiple people at once. Granted, this doesn't happen too often, but it is possible. Now, I wouldn't even want to speculate how much the maxed out mining setup will cost in order to maximise your profits, but I think I'd definitely be needing to have a word with the banker to take out a loan. Now granted, the setup that you need in order to carry maybe an Enderman Slayer is not the cheapest one in the world, but I think it's a damn sight cheaper than a maxed out mining setup. Plus, majority of people who are able to do this method probably already have the setup and just aren't carrying people. Now where it gets really crazy is the Inferno carries. For a tier 4, it's 4.75 mil per completion, and if it's a bulk order, it's 4 mil per completion. Now obviously this is insane money, but it's probably a method that will become more lucrative in the future. Just purely because, once again from my experience, we don't really get that many requests for Infernal carries. Just purely because, well, I mean, even though the Blaze Slayer came out a while ago now, a lot of people still haven't got around to it. The amount of, like, Enderman Slayer carries speaks volumes for where people are up to in the game. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people who are maxed out Blaze Slayer, because there are, but there's way more people who are maxed out Enderman Slayer than Blaze Slayer, because it's been out for longer. Blaze Slayer is substantially harder than Enderman. But as time goes on, Blaze Slayer carries is only going to become more lucrative as more people progress further into the game. If you're able to keep up the same pace as Enderman carries, and you're charging 4 mil per carry, that's potentially 80 mil per hour. Like I said before, I'm not sure if this is realistically possible at the moment, but I think it will be in the future. Now, don't get me wrong, this video is not just to promote my Discord server. I've basically been in the Discord server for half of the video. If you know of any other servers that do carries or any other creators that also do carries, then, you know, go for it. I'm not saying you have to use our carries. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can find the same service cheaper somewhere else, then, you'd be an idiot not to. Now, the difference between Slayer carries and other money-making methods is just purely the fact that there's pretty much always going to be demand for Slayer carries. In other words, they're going to be pretty steady and pretty constant. At the end of the day, there's always new players playing the game and progressing to a point where they need carries to progress further. Other money-making methods involving the AH and the Bazaar, if they're really that lucrative, don't last for too long. That's because usually people make a video on them and then the money-making method is dead. Now, there is still going to be slightly slower days than others, just purely because, well, I guess more people play Skyblock, for instance, on weekends. Therefore, you're probably going to be busier on weekends. But from what I've seen, the demand is quite constant, I can't lie. Now, earlier in the video, I touched on potentially carrying 2 people at once. Now, how likely is this and how would it even work? And realistically, to be honest, it would probably only properly work if everyone was in the same call, so you could sort of synchronize when the bosses were spawning. If they could both spawn the bosses relatively quickly, then you could actually potentially sort of have no impact on how much time it actually takes and just make double the money, but it's a very ideal world situation, and is it very realistic? Potentially. I mean, if you could make it work and you find 2 people that need carrying at the same time, then you could actually double your coins, but it is in a very ideal situation. But I guess this would happen every now and then, and it's just double coins, so who can complain? But realistically, right now, I'd probably say from tier 4 Enderman carries, you could probably quite comfortably make probably 30 million an hour doing 15 carries an hour. Now, you might think, well, do you even get the volume of carries? And I'd say yes, because most people want carrying to either Enderman Slayer 5 or Enderman Slayer 7, so they want bulk carries. You get very few people just wanting 1 or 2 carries. Now, like I said at the start of the video, this is definitely not a no setup money making method. It's a ridiculously good money making method that can make you a ridiculous amount of coins in a pretty short amount of time. But of course, if you actually want to carry tier 4 Void Glooms, then you need to be at least Enderman Slayer 7, you need to have a pretty good setup, you need to be competent and be able to prove that you can actually carry them within like a decent time. But even if you can't do this money making method, at least you now know if you need carries, join the Discord in the description. But anyway, that just about wraps up today's video. Now, I did make a video similar to this probably over a year ago now, but that obviously took no consideration of Blaze Slayers. So I thought I'd just remind everyone. Anyway, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.